Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Kapnick Strive October webinar. I'm Jen Alexander, Wellness Coordinator here at Kapnick Strive, and with me is Emma Dowd. We are ready to get into a topic that is so interesting, healthy relationships. We're going to be discussing what makes a healthy relationship, as well as we all know our social and our familial and romantic relationships are a big part of our lives. And so we get support and these people in our lives that we have relationships with make our day better. And there's actually evidence that it can prolong our lives to have these healthy relationships. So in this webinar, we will discuss the characteristics of the healthy relationship and unhealthy relationship, setting and maintaining boundaries, strategies for creating healthy relationships, and resources for those in unhealthy situations. Just a general reminder that you can be thinking of any person that you have a relationship with. It does not have to be romantic, as we are discussing and looking at these different things. People use the word relationship so much that it's often assumed to have one universal definition, when in reality, the word encompasses such a massive variety of kinds of human connection, romantic, non-romantic, and it's likely that no two people share the exact same understanding of what defines a relationship. A relationship is any kind of association or connection between people, whether intimate, platonic, positive, or negative. Typically, when people talk about being in a relationship, the term is referencing a specific type of romantic relationship involving both emotional and physical intimacy and some level of ongoing commitment. There are four basic types of relationships: family relationships, friendships, acquaintanceships, and romantic relationships. Other more nuanced types of relationships include work relationships, teacher-student, and community or group relationships. Some of these types of relationships can even overlap and coincide with one another. For example, two people can be both work colleagues and close friends. So as we've seen, you have unique relationships with all kinds of people in your life. While romantic partnerships may often feel the most significant, it's still important to consider the quality and health of your relationships with family and friends, chosen or biological. One framework for relationships that's known in psychology is called Sternberg's triangular theory of love. It identifies three main components of love: passion, intimacy, and commitment. Passion refers to feelings of attraction. Intimacy refers to feelings of closeness and connection. And commitment refers to the ongoing decision to stay in and nurture the relationship. Based on Sternberg's theory, the combination of the three different components of love create different types of relationships. For example, friendships would include intimacy, or feelings of connection, only, where romantic love would include both intimacy and passion, which was attraction. And then the center of the triangle would include all the elements: passion, intimacy, and commitment. In terms of romantic relationships, a relationship that includes all components of the triangle, closeness, attraction, and long-term commitment, is most likely to succeed. So now that we've discussed what that term means, relationships, and the different components that can make up a relationship, we'll move into what makes a relationship healthy or unhealthy. As we move forward again, we may reference situations that most likely occur in romantic relationships. However, the signs of a healthy and unhealthy relationship are universal, so you can be applying these to a variety of relationships in your life. Signs of an unhealthy relationship. We're going to start here. We are going to use the term partner in many of these. but they can be applied to non-romantic relationships as well. So the first sign of an unhealthy relationship is if things are getting too intense too fast. This is when someone expresses very extreme feelings and over-the-top behavior that feels overwhelming. They might also seem obsessive about wanting to see you and be in constant contact. This can be a warning sign of future possessiveness. Next, if your partner is actively controlling what you do and or becoming extremely jealous of spending time with others. Jealousy is a normal human emotion, but it becomes unhealthy when it causes someone to control or lash out at you. So this means that getting upset when you text or hang up with people. This means getting upset when you text or hang out with people that your partner is threatened by, maybe wrongly accusing you of flirting or cheating, or even goes so far as to stalk you. A big warning sign is also isolation. If a partner tries to keep you away from friends, family, or other people, or even asks that you choose between them, you may end up becoming increasingly isolated. Next, if your partner does and says things that make you feel bad about yourself, this includes name calling, making rude remarks about people you're close with, or criticizing you. Over time, this can make you lose your confidence in yourself and or your abilities. And lastly, if someone makes you feel responsible for their actions or makes you feel like it's your job to keep them happy. This includes threatening to hurt themselves or others if you don't do it as they say or stay with them. They might also pressure you to do something that you're not comfortable with by claiming that it'll hurt their feelings if you do not. If you or anyone that you know is experiencing some of these signs, it may be necessary to get help. We'll discuss planning for this in a few slides from now. Looking at a healthy relationship now. A healthy relationship is one that is built on mutual respect and trust. You don't have to love everything your partner or friend does, but you do need to respect each other. You and your partner need to understand that you are each unique people with individual interests and needs. Trustworthy friends, partners, and family members are predictable, reliable, and faithful. The next part of a healthy relationship is communication. And I'm sure you've heard it. It's a two-way street. You need to be able to speak your mind, and you also need to be able to hear when your partner speaks theirs, even when they tell you something unpleasant. It's also healthy to enjoy spending quality time together, doing things like watching a favorite show, going for a walk, or out to eat. At the same time, a healthy relationship also involves spending needed time apart. In a healthy relationship, you should also both have equal stake in decision making, whether you're deciding on something as mundane as what to have for dinner or something big like where you live. You and your partner should listen to each other and come to a mutually agreeable decision. Lastly, the best way to know if you're in a healthy relationship is to consider how your relationship makes you feel. Infatuation can feel exciting and drama can masquerade as passion, but a healthy relationship feels safe, calm, and empowering. If your partner regularly shows that they care for you and support you, that is a good sign of a healthy relationship. We've talked about the signs of a healthy relationship, so how can we get there? Whether it's with friends or your partner, there are multiple strategies for improving the health of your relationship. We also want to add the disclaimer that while relationships can always be improved, it's also important to know when a relationship should be ended. As mentioned, we'll discuss this a bit later. Boundaries. One important step in building a healthy relationship is defining your boundaries. These boundaries in a relationship help each person figure out where one person ends and the other begins. In short, boundaries help you define what you are comfortable with and how you would like to be treated by others. These are some boundaries that can apply to any kind of relationship. Boundaries can be emotional, physical, digital, and environmental. So something like, I'm okay with you following me on Instagram as my partner, but I'm not going to share my password. So that would be an example of a boundary in the digital world. Or I'm comfortable with PDA, public displays of affection, just not around my family. Another example is, I need to have my office space to myself for a few hours a day. Gotta have that time to concentrate. Or I want to spend time with my family and friends on the weekends. These are different examples of boundaries, but you get to choose what boundaries make sense for you and your relationship. So how do we maintain these boundaries? Communication is key in a healthy relationship, and boundaries are an important part of an ongoing conversation between you and your partner. Talking about boundaries can happen at any time throughout the relationship. So if your partner or your friend does something that you don't like, let them know. A simple, I'm not comfortable when, lets them know what's on your mind. In a healthy relationship, partners respect each other's boundaries once they've been communicated. And if you're ever not clear on your partner's boundaries, just ask.
All right, so talking about fighting fairly. So conflict happens in all relationships. By conflict, we specifically mean verbal disagreements and arguments. People disagree sometimes, and that isn't necessarily a bad thing. You have the right to have a different opinion from your partner. What's important is that you communicate effectively and in a healthy way that allows you to understand each other better. So some tips for healthy conflict resolution include using healthy communication skills. So I statements are a great tool to lean on. For example, you can say something along the lines of, I feel like I'm not a priority when my phone calls aren't returned. This sounds a lot different than you never return my calls. I statements help minimize any blame in the conversation and shift the focus to how something makes you feel. Ideally, when we're kind of fighting fairly and working on these conflict resolution methods, ideally both partners will maintain a calm and respectful demeanor during intense conversations. If you find yourself overheated, it's almost always best to walk away and approach the topic at a later time. And this is an example of another boundary that we were just talking about. You can always say, I don't want to talk about this anymore right now. Can we return to this at a later time? That's a boundary for yourself that is perfectly fine and is healthy in having these kind of disagreements. So next, it's important to know when to choose your battles. If the problem is small, sometimes it's best to drop it or find a point of compromise. Lastly, take time to consider if the issue is resolvable or not. If you are communicating healthily about a large issue, maybe something like having kids or getting married, or maybe it's a disagreement about just something that feels really big, and you're still not seeing a point of compromise or agreement, you might consider if you are aligned for a long-term relationship. So while communicating healthily is one important skill in a relationship, learning when to sit back and listen is just as important too. So some tips for improving your active listening skills in a relationship include focus on the person speaking. Step one, put your phone down, look them in the eye as they speak, and take a few long, deep breaths to help with your focus. And don't give advice unless you're asked for it. Humans are natural problem solvers. So when a problem is revealed to you, you probably start working in your mind on how to fix or change it. But that causes you to take your focus off the person and lose present moment awareness. So next, ask open-ended questions. So this is anything that can't be answered with a simple yes or no. Open-ended questions help you to gain a better understanding by letting the other person choose the direction of the conversation. So when we ask closed-ended questions, it's usually a way to direct the conversation in a particular direction. Another step to active listening is reflecting back what you hear. So it might feel silly, but repeating back what your partner said to you, but using different words. To make it easier, you can start with something and say, it sounds like ... So for example, if your partner says, I've been feeling frustrated because I feel like you've been distant from me, and now this might sound silly, but you can say something along the lines of, it sounds like you're frustrated with how distant I've been. Lastly, validate their emotions. So even if you disagree that something you did was wrong, you can't change how it made the other person feel. Even if your intentions were good, that doesn't necessarily mean that the impact was good. So all you have to do is verbalize the emotions that they're displaying to show that you understand how they're feeling and the impact that you had. So quality time. So prioritizing quality time in your relationships can help develop an increased sense of closeness and intimacy. So when we talk about quality time, that doesn't mean more time necessarily. It just means that the time you spend together occasionally that is uninterrupted by other worries or other people. So given our increasingly digital world, it can almost feel impossible to escape distractions. This is why it can be really helpful to turn devices to silent mode or leave them behind when you are having quality time with your partner or with your friend. So while it's fun to be spontaneous, planning to do something together can make the mundane feel special. So for example, try a new restaurant for dinner, schedule a bike ride over the weekend, or plan a new walking path along the river. Lastly, you can get creative with your quality time. It doesn't always have to be romantic. If it's with your romantic partner, it doesn't always have to be something fun like going out to the bars with your friends. It doesn't have to be perfectly planned. You could just run errands together and chat about your day. So on a long car ride, maybe try turning off the podcast and trying to learn something new about each other. That being said, while spending quality time together is great, we all need our alone time to focus on our individual goals, friendships, hobbies, and more. So not everyone has the same level of need when it comes to alone time. It's possible that your partner or friend needs more or less than you do. So some partners might not understand why their significant others need alone time, but it doesn't discount the fact that it's important. So remember, some people recharge by being around others, while some people recharge by taking time away. Now we're going to be talking a little bit about recognizing signs that you're in an unhealthy relationship and kind of what to do about it. So as we mentioned earlier, there are many warning signs that you might be in an unhealthy relationship with a friend, family member, or partner. If you experience many of these signs or feel unsafe, uncomfortable, or trapped inside any of your relationships, it may be time to consider a safe plan for leaving or ending that relationship. So we're going to be discussing some questions you can ask yourself and some next steps. So some questions to ask yourself. So if you're questioning whether a relationship is unhealthy or if you might need to end a relationship, ask yourself these questions. Are you afraid of your partner? Is your partner willing to change, compromise? How do you feel when you're around your partner? Do you feel safe, happy, comforted, or do you feel nervous, on edge, like you're stepping on eggshells? How has the relationship affected your self-esteem? And have you ever experienced physical harm at the hands of your partner? So if you feel afraid of your partner, friend, family member, if they refuse to compromise, if they bring you down, or if they've ever physically harmed you, the best solution is probably to safely end that relationship. So if you plan to end an unhealthy relationship, it may be important to consider your personal safety while doing so. So let a trusted person know that you are ending your relationship, especially if you think the other person will try to confront you when you're alone. Next, trust your gut. If you have a feeling that the conversation could escalate, plan to have it in a public area. Sometimes it also might be safest for you to end a relationship via phone or text, even if it doesn't feel the best. If you do end a relationship in person, consider having friends or a family member nearby for support and or safety planning. So lastly, It's normal to miss someone you've been close to, even if they have been abusive. Write down your reasons for ending the relationship and keep them as a reminder. Give a copy to a trusted friend you have identified to be a part of your support system, just in case you need the reminder, the extra reminder. Ending a relationship, giving all these tips, it's much easier said than done. It is something that is really hard, but is really important to do for your own safety and well-being if necessary. If you need help creating a safety plan for leaving a relationship, or you'd like to talk to someone, there are many reliable text lines, chats, and hotlines to turn to. We've listed some of them on the screen here. So if you are recovering from an unhealthy relationship, you may consider seeking therapy to unpack past experiences. Lastly, lean on the meaningful and positive relationships in your life for support. Remind yourself that you are deserving of a relationship that is healthy, and there are already people in your life who love and care for you unconditionally. All right, and lastly, if you would like to learn more, there are several different resources up here on the screen. A few books that address relationships, friend relationships, parent relationships, relationships with your children, setting boundaries, so kind of really building that relationship with yourself, a podcast for couples, and there's a TED Talk video up there. These are all really great resources if you would like to check any of them out. And with that, we are wrapping up. Thank you for joining us today. Our next webinar will be November 16th from noon to 12:30 p.m. and the topic is self-actualization. So thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.